Hello and welcome to the next chapter of my gluten and dairy-free experiment. This is the reintroduction phase. I've had gluten and dairy back in my diet for over 3 months now. So I'll talk a little bit about my compliance. I've actually been making an effort to eat more healthily. Now I could be stricter with that and my diet, though I feel like I'm actually putting in a lot more effort now to manage my health, especially when I consider that I didn't actually have to give up sugar or alcohol before while I was eating the gluten and dairy-free diet. I've continued to train at the gym and I've actually reached personal bests on practically all lifts, which is an indication I'm getting a lot stronger. So I'm going to jump into the results in the usual measures that I've been tracking. So I'm going to compare them to the baseline, or the new baseline I should say, which is where I was at week 12 when I was not eating gluten or dairy. So green is going to indicate continued improvement and red's going to indicate deterioration. So we'll start with the objective measures. I've gained about 4 kilograms. My waist circumference has more or less stayed where it was at the end of the gluten and dairy-free phase. However, it did dip a little bit in between and now it's starting to climb back up. My fasting blood glucose levels have gone up and they've stabilized around that point. That's a considerable markup from where it was before. Body fat levels have increased by about 2.5% as measured by the scale. I will do some caliper readings next check-in.
Even though the light quality is different, you'll see, both relaxed and posing, that my gut is a lot more distended since reintroducing gluten and dairy back into my diet.
In terms of my wellness measures, now my sleep quality and libido actually improved just a little bit. I've actually been doing a few measures to make sure my sleep hygiene is good to get better rest, and maybe that time in the gym's paying off. Mood, stress and energy have all significantly deteriorated, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in the interpretation. Let's move now to the symptoms. My irritability and brain fog have improved marginally, though it's hard to notice a difference in those two measures. My cravings have reduced a lot, and again, that's probably because I've actually just been eating the foods that I was craving if I felt like it. And in terms of pain and bloating, that's where I've noticed probably the biggest difference, in that I actually feel quite a lot more bloated and the pain is quite a lot more notable at this point in time. So we'll look at the other observations that I've noted. The vividness of my dreams seems to have fallen away somewhat. Now I'm still having reasonably vivid dreams, they're just not as intense anymore. I've actually, like I said though, been trying to work on my sleep hygiene and quality. I've noted as well in the last update that I was feeling less satisfied with food. Now it's become more and more apparent in this session as well. I seem really hungry even though I'm obviously eating more than enough calories because I'm gaining weight. It's a different sensation than craving, which reduce, because cravings tend to be for a specific food, so I'm probably having less cravings but more overall hunger. And I think this is an important thing to look at. I'm actually going to consider introducing that as a factor, because I think hunger is a real barrier for people trying strategies to lose weight and persevere with diets. And my felt sense is in this period I was actually more hungry than last period, and I felt less hungry and was actually losing weight. So there are some suggestions on the internet about this point, that eating wheat and other grain products interferes with the processes that control appetite and make you feel more hungry. Now, before I gave up gluten and dairy, I was actually becoming pretty desperate to do something different, and I'm beginning to feel that way now. It's becoming increasingly common for me to feel stressed, bloated, tired and flat, and that's quite an uncomfortable place to be. So, interpreting some of the data as well now, it's hard to really draw any significant conclusions. I'm aware that I can't actually measure the mechanisms of action that are at play here, and it's hard to determine which effects are primary, secondary, or just incidental. I know that there's external factors that are having an effect on my stress levels and likely mood, in fact. Having said that though, I feel like I've been fairly careful with my diet and continue to work hard in the gym. The results, however, indicate that these considerable efforts I've been putting in have been less effective at improving my well-being than just giving up gluten and dairy. I really wanted to prove that it didn't matter what you eat, but the longer I spend in this phase, the more I'm convinced that it's actually having an effect. So to summarize what I've kind of come up with at this stage, the picture's becoming more clear. 5 of the measures have marginally improved, 1 measure has remained about the same, and 9 measures have notably deteriorated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to persevere for another month or so. I'm going to see if I can reverse this trend of gaining weight and fat, and I'm going to do that by having a little bit more control over my diet and seeking opportunities for more incidental activity and exercise. I'm also going to plan to introduce some relaxation and mindfulness back in, just for my own overall well-being. Thanks very much.